It was a moment no one expected, the kind that freezes a room and echoes long after the tears fall. In a courtroom packed with tension, Justin Combs, the son of Sean Diddy Combs, broke down. His tears weren't just emotion. They were a reaction to a truth crashing down like a freight train. The life of privilege he'd always known had become a trap. Justin grew up in a world of velvet ropes and million-dollar mansions. Private schools, designer clothes, and exclusive access were his norm, and yet here he was, caught at the center of a federal investigation threatening to dismantle everything. How did it come to this? What led federal agents to look past the glamour and focus on someone who had largely stayed in the background? Justin's descent into legal jeopardy didn't start with a crime, but with proximity. During the March 25, 2024, FBI raids on his father's properties, Justin was present. Questioned for hours, every word he said was weighed and recorded. Suddenly, he was no longer just Diddy's son. He was a potential witness, maybe even a suspect. Federal RICO cases are built on patterns and connections. Prosecutors don't need evidence of direct criminal acts, only proof someone knowingly aided a larger enterprise. And when you're involved in meetings, contracts, and day-to-day operations, you're no longer a bystander. After graduating from UCLA, Justin became increasingly active in his father's business. He attended meetings, helped with events, and built his own name in the industry. But now, every detail of that involvement is being examined. Did he know what he was part of? Or is he collateral damage in a much larger case? This isn't just one man's fall, it's about a son wrestling with the cost of family loyalty. Can he stay silent? Should he cooperate? If justice demands a sacrifice, what will he choose? In court, as media swarmed and speculation grew, Justin's tears marked a shift. The evidence wasn't just on paper, it was written across his face. Shock, fear, betrayal. A life of security had given way to a storm he never saw coming. What makes this moment so powerful is how it exposes the fragility of privilege. Justin had always appeared stable, responsible, removed from his father's controversies. Now, that stability is gone. Federal investigators aren't just analyzing bank statements, they're examining family ties. Did Justin's loyalty blind him? Was his participation intentional or simply a role he felt expected to play? Every move he's made is being reinterpreted. That meeting, that event, that contract, nothing is off the table. The loyalty that once elevated him might now incriminate him. Meanwhile, the emotional toll is real. Legal experts agree. Choosing between family and freedom is one of the hardest decisions anyone can face. Cooperate and risk breaking family bonds. Stay loyal and face prosecution. This isn't just a legal drama, it's a human story. One about identity, sacrifice, and the thin line between love and liability. Justin Combs isn't just a name in a headline. He's a young man facing the collapse of everything he thought he knew. As this case unfolds, one truth becomes clear. Wealth and fame offer no shield from the weight of federal scrutiny. The courtroom is the great equalizer, where last names and legacy carry little meaning against hard evidence and relentless prosecution. For Justin, the road ahead is uncertain, but one thing is certain. The empire that once defined him could now decide his fate. Federal RICO investigations don't play favorites. They don't flinch at fame, fortune, or family. What they do is dig. And once the digging starts, the net only widens. What began as a probe into Diddy's empire has now turned its spotlight on everyone close to him. And Justin, by blood and business, is undeniably close. These investigations are like dominoes. You start with the central figure, and one by one, everyone connected, friends, employees, partners, and yes, family, gets pulled in. Prosecutors examine every interaction through a new lens. Was this person aware? Were they involved? And more importantly, can their involvement help build a case? The timeline matters. Federal scrutiny of Diddy spans all the way back to 2008, a period during which Justin transitioned from high school student to full-grown adult. As his role in the business world expanded, so did his legal exposure. RICO charges are designed for exactly this kind of situation. They allow prosecutors to pursue anyone who knowingly contributes to a criminal enterprise, regardless of whether they personally committed a crime. The idea is simple. If you're part of the operation, even if you're just managing the money or handling the events, you're on the hook. And history backs this up. Prosecutors have gone after spouses, siblings, and children in high-profile RICO cases. The message is clear. Bloodlines offer no immunity. In fact, family connections are often seen as potential leverage points, ways to pressure the main target into cooperation or a plea deal. That puts Justin in a uniquely dangerous spot. If federal agents believe he knew about or contributed to any illegal operations, whether through business meetings, communications, or financial transactions, he could be charged. Even unintentional involvement could be interpreted as knowing participation if prosecutors find enough circumstantial evidence. This isn't paranoia, it's strategy. Legal experts say that pressuring family members is a common tactic in federal prosecutions. It creates emotional leverage. Few things are more persuasive than the fear of watching your child go to prison. And few things are more difficult than deciding whether to testify against a loved one. Justin's legal team knows this. They're likely weighing every piece of communication, every signature, every appearance he's made over the years. Anything could be used to show involvement. But at the same time, they're working to build a defense that frames his participation as loyalty, not criminal intent. The truth is, many children in powerful families find themselves pulled into business affairs they don't fully understand. The line between support and complicity gets blurry, but prosecutors won't care about confusion. They care about patterns, consistency, and proof of knowledge. What's more chilling is the idea that Justin could be used as a bargaining chip. Prosecutors may not need to convict him. They may just need the threat to hang in the air long enough for Diddy to strike a deal. The emotional chess game is brutal, and it's playing out in real time. For now, Justin walks a tightrope. Every move he makes, from public statements to private conversations, is being watched, recorded, and interpreted. The smallest misstep could shift him from witness to co-defendant. And in the eyes of the law, that transition can happen in a moment. His future hinges not just on what he's done, but on what the government thinks he knew. In a RICO case, that's all it takes. The pressure is immense. Behind the scenes, defense attorneys and federal agents are engaged in a silent war of leverage and timing. Justin's next decisions, whether to speak, cooperate, or remain silent, could redefine his life. Every conversation is strategic. Every silence is loud. In the chessboard of federal law, he's now a critical piece. And the stakes are as high as they come. In a federal courtroom, everything feels different. The silence is louder, the stakes higher, and every look carries weight. For family members like Justin Combs, being present at a trial involving a loved one isn't just emotionally draining, it's psychologically brutal. Justin's world has been flipped inside out. One moment, he was attending industry events, sharing moments with his father, and posting glimpses of a privileged life on social media. The next, he was sitting in a courtroom watching the empire that defined his identity get dissected by prosecutors. The emotional pressure is relentless. Legal proceedings are not only about facts, they're about perception. How you sit, how you look, how you react. And when your every expression is being photographed, tweeted, and analyzed, the stress becomes unthinkable. Legal experts agree. The psychological trauma of watching a parent face criminal charges, especially when you might be next, can be overwhelming. For someone like Justin, who has never faced serious consequences before, the fear of what's coming can be paralyzing. Then there's the fear of betrayal. Cooperation agreements often require family members to testify against each other in exchange for leniency. But doing that is easier said than done. How do you look your parent in the eye and admit to everything you know? How do you explain that you're choosing your freedom over their future? This emotional tightrope has left many family members in similar cases shattered, torn between loyalty and survival. Justin has always admired his father. He's spoken publicly about Diddy's guidance and how it shaped his life. That admiration is now colliding with a federal justice system that demands brutal honesty. And that's where the real emotional storm brews. Because cooperation isn't just about giving testimony, it's about completely surrendering your narrative. You don't get to protect people. You don't get to hold back. You say it all, or you say nothing, and live with the consequences. Complicating this is the courtroom dynamic itself. Federal courts are formal, intimidating, and unforgiving. Defendants are flanked by marshals, arguments are dissected by stern judges, and juries are trained to look past emotion and see only the evidence. But for family members sitting in the gallery, the experience is personal. Every accusation feels like a personal attack. Every revelation, a knife to the gut. For Justin, the courtroom is more than just a stage for legal theater. It's a mirror reflecting a life he never thought he'd have to face. He's watching his father not as a child looks up to a hero, but as a man now forced to consider whether that hero led him into something far darker. Psychologists say the long-term impact of this kind of stress can alter a person's sense of self. Anxiety, insomnia, depression. It doesn't just end when the trial does. The damage lingers, especially when legal exposure means you could be next. Justin's presence in court isn't just symbolic, it's strategic. Prosecutors know it. Defense attorneys know it. It sends a message. You're involved. You're next. Whether he ends up charged or not, the pressure is the punishment, and that punishment is already underway. Every passing day in that courtroom adds another layer of complexity to Justin's emotional journey. He's not just fighting for his future, he's trying to understand his past. Who was he really following? What did he truly inherit? And how do you start over when the foundation you stood on is crumbling beneath your feet? These are questions no courtroom can answer, yet they're the ones that may haunt him long after the trial ends. Justin Combs didn't just grow up around his father's empire, he stepped into it. After college, he became more than a familiar face at events. He evolved into an active participant in the machinery behind one of the most recognizable brands in entertainment. But with that visibility came vulnerability. In the world of federal investigations, especially under RICO statutes, involvement doesn't need to be criminal in intent. It only needs to be meaningful. And in the eyes of prosecutors, Justin's presence at meetings, his role in negotiations, and his appearance in promotional material could all point to one thing: participation. He wasn't a silent observer. He engaged, he networked, he made decisions. And while that helped him carve out his own identity in the business, it also tied him tighter to his father's legacy, both the celebrated and the controversial. The entertainment industry operates in a gray zone. Deals are complex, relationships matter more than paper, and financial transactions often stretch across personal and professional lines. That's the kind of environment where federal investigators dig deep, looking for emails, wire transfers, contracts, texts, anything that could show who knew what and when, and Justin was there. He was part of meetings. He was involved in branding decisions. He had a stake, maybe not always in dollars, but in influence. Prosecutors aren't just looking for bank records. They're building a narrative, one where everyone played a part, one where Justin's actions might fit into a larger puzzle. What complicates his situation is that he wasn't just acting in support of his father. He was launching his own ventures under the family umbrella. That blurs the line even more. Was he operating as a son, a businessman, or both? And how separate were those roles in practice? The question isn't just whether Justin committed a crime. It's whether his involvement helps tell the story prosecutors are trying to prove, that a criminal enterprise existed, and that even those who didn't orchestrate it still played their parts. Legal experts point out that in complex enterprises, even the appearance of complicity can be dangerous. If someone benefits from an operation, attends meetings, and takes part in strategy, it becomes harder to claim ignorance, even if their intent wasn't criminal. Federal cases often turn on details: a signature on a deal, a reply to a questionable email, a presence at a meeting where something illegal was discussed. And Justin, by his own social media and public records, was close to everything. His visibility now works against him. Every post, every photo, every tweet is evidence waiting to be reinterpreted. What once looked like branding now looks like association. What once was promotion now raises questions. This is the paradox of proximity. The closer you are to power, the more vulnerable you become when that power is investigated. And Justin, once protected by privilege, now finds himself under a microscope built to catch those very privileges in action. No matter how clean his hands may have been, his fingerprints are on the operation. And in a federal courtroom, that may be all it takes. What makes Justin's situation uniquely precarious is that prosecutors don't have to prove he masterminded anything. They only have to show that he contributed, knowingly or not, to the ongoing enterprise. That's the crux of RICO. It doesn't require you to be the leader. It punishes you for being a piece of the machine. And now Justin faces the impossible task of untangling his legitimate ambitions from a system that's now under federal fire. Justin Combs now lives under a cloud that stretches far beyond his own decisions. Regardless of whether charges are ever filed, the implications of this investigation have already changed his trajectory. His name is now tied to a federal case that could go down as one of the most high-profile RICO investigations in the entertainment industry. The damage to his career and personal life is already underway. In the entertainment world, perception often outweighs reality. Business partners back away, deals stall, trust evaporates. Even those who believed in his talent and vision may now see him as a liability, not because of who he is, but because of who he's related to. And while the legal path ahead remains unclear, one thing is certain: federal investigations don't just target, they isolate. The moment your name appears in the same sentence as conspiracy or enterprise, you become radioactive. Whether innocent or not, the fallout is the same. For Justin, this isn't just about avoiding prosecution, it's about salvaging identity, about figuring out who he is without the shadow of his father's empire. Can he rebuild a brand that doesn't rely on family legacy? Can he step out of the courtroom and into a future that isn't shaped by headlines? It's possible, but only if the legal strategy works in his favor. That means proving distance. It means showing that his involvement, if any, was peripheral, that he wasn't a cog in the machine, but rather a bystander swept into a storm he never saw coming. Defense. Attorneys often walk a tight line in these cases. They must humanize their client while distancing them from the core of the criminal allegations. They'll argue that Justin's participation was symbolic, not strategic, that he was there in title, not in function. At the same time, prosecutors might see him as leverage. If they believe Justin holds information that could solidify their case against his father, they may offer a cooperation deal. That could come with reduced risk for Justin, but at the cost of his relationship with his family. These are decisions that cut deep, because once someone cooperates, the bond changes forever. No matter the outcome, things don't go back to how they were. And that brings us to the wider picture, what this case means for entertainment families. The idea that children, spouses, or siblings can be swept into a federal RICO case is a warning shot. It suggests that business operations built on tight-knit trust must now also consider legal vulnerability. More scrutiny means more risk, and more risk means families may have to reimagine how they do business. The days of assuming immunity through legacy are over. Wealth and fame no longer guarantee protection. They may actually bring you closer to danger. For Justin, that danger is now real. It's emotional, it's reputational, and it's legal. Whether he's charged or cleared, the story has already taken root. And that's the brutal truth of federal investigations. The process itself can feel like punishment. But what comes next is still unwritten. Justin could choose silence. He could fight back. Or he could step away from it all and start over. What matters now is not just what he does, but how the world chooses to remember him. In the end, the real legacy won't be built in boardrooms or courtrooms. It'll be defined by how he survives this chapter and what he builds from its ashes. So as the cameras continue to flash and the headlines keep rolling, one truth remains. This isn't just a legal case. It's a personal reckoning. And whether Justin Combs walks out of this storm unscathed or scarred, the lessons etched into this moment will shape not just his future, but how all families tied to power navigate the fine line between loyalty and liability.